The 2020 hurricane season smashed records from start to finish.
Thankful for everything that you have, God. Everything.
2020 also saw humanity weathering the wrath of Mother Nature.
6 weeks ago, we stood on this exact balcony. Tonight, it's Delta.
The fires eating this land
have turned the skies a bright amber.
Siberia has been sizzling in record heat recently. The strongest evidence yet, human-caused climate change.
But things are not getting easier this year either.
Going to have a much worse or unbearable life on the planet Earth.
Australia's east coast has been lashed by life-threatening flash floods.
Severe storms striking the states.
A massive dust storm hit Mongolia, China.
We're talking about record-breaking cold temperatures.
Time is not on our side, but is there a silver lining?
We're in the best of times and the worst of times.
Move towards new energy is now an absolute priority.
Humanity at a crossroad in climate change. What actions can we expect from China, the United States, and the European Union? Join us for our special series, Climate Talk.
The 2020 hurricane season smashed records from start to finish.
Thankful for everything that you have, God. Everything.
2020 also saw humanity weathering the wrath of Mother Nature.
6 weeks ago, we stood on this exact balcony. Tonight, it's Delta.
The fires eating this land
have turned the skies a bright amber.
Siberia has been sizzling in record heat recently. The strongest evidence yet, human-caused climate change.
But things are not getting easier this year either.
Going to have a much worse or unbearable life on the planet Earth.
Australia's east coast has been lashed by life-threatening flash floods.
Severe storms striking the states.
A massive dust storm hit Mongolia, China.
We're talking about record-breaking cold temperatures.
Time is not on our side, but is there a silver lining?
We're in the best of times and the worst of times.
Move towards new energy is now an absolute priority.
Humanity at a crossroad in climate change. What actions can we expect from China, the United States, and the European Union? Join us for our special series, Climate Talk.
Welcome to this edition of Climate Talk, live from Beijing. I'm Guan. Recently, the United Nations issued a landmark report which UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres described as a code red for humanity, putting enormous pressure on governments to act, especially phasing out coal and fossil fuels. And to talk more about what needs to be done to transform energy mix and reduce carbon footprint, today I'm joined by three distinguished guests. Rina Su, Managing Director and Partner at Boston's Consulting Group, Lien, President of Honeywell China, and Dr. Shen Yiyang, Director of Inclusive Development Center. Well, thank you so much for joining us. So, Rina, let me start with you. We know that energy accounts for over 2/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. So that means energy must at the heart of the solution to climate change. So help us understand, where are we now in this transition towards carbon neutrality?
Okay, sure. So thank you so much for inviting me to this topic. So first of all, I think we need to understand what's happening in our energy market overall, right? Globally speaking, I think fossil fuel takes more than 80% of the overall energy consumptions. So that means going forward, actually including oil, natural gas, and coal, actually those are the major resources for all the carbon emissions. So going forward, we really need to push hard to squeeze those carbon, I would say, fossil fuels below 20%, at least below 30% of the overall in the next 20 to 30.
That's a very sharp reduction.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Shen, what is your observation of the momentum of climate change actions in the run-up to the Glasgow Climate Summit? Especially U.S. Climate Envoy John Kerry is now visiting China. What can we expect?
Well, definitely, I think it's a good signal for the climate change sector. I have to say that, because both U.S. and China add up to something like half of the global emissions, total emissions, and if these two countries work together, then it will be very, very good for the global effort for emission reduction and also climate change mitigation. So and also. We are both all concerned of the post-COVID recovery of world economics. What the world will be doing. I think China and U.S. work together will be helping a lot.
Right, but however, bilateral relations is having some difficulties at the moment. Right. Do you expect this will bring some opportunities for two sides, a rare window for a cooperation between the two sides?
Of course, cooperation, is better than no cooperation. So I think besides a lot of other issues, I think climate change will be the major issue, and it will be very good, for both countries to be well prepared. So US and China all put a lot of budget, I think, for climate change mitigation in the next few years. This is a very good opportunity. The two countries can work together.
Indeed, the two sides should seize the opportunity for cooperation. And Steve, sustainability has become a core strategy for many companies. And we know that Honeywell has made a commitment to become carbon neutral in its operations and facilities by 2035. What's the pathway towards carbon neutral?
Yes, thanks again for having me on the show this evening. Honeywell has a long history of improving our environmental and sustainability profile. And we do this through our own facilities as well as what we offer to our customers. And we've been on this path since 2004, and we've actually already made significant reductions in our greenhouse intensity. And we do this by integrating the philosophy into our core operating system. So each of our businesses annually establishes a greenhouse goal and efficiency goals. These projects are tracked all the way up to the top to the CEO, Darius Adamczyk, and he looks at these reports about monthly. So over the past number of years, we've completed about 6,000 sustainability projects already. And going forward, we're going to continue to make these investments. We'll make them in our facilities in energy-saving projects, in conversion to renewable energy sources. And that's not only for our factories, but also for our fleet of vehicles. So in this way, we are committed to, on an annual and step-by-step basis, making our carbon neutrality goal by 2035.
Thank you. And Rina, what do you think about the challenges in China to reach carbon neutral? We know that fossil fuels still plays a big role in the country's energy structure. It's a daunting task to phase them completely out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think China faced a lot of challenges, I think way much bigger than US or Europe. I think first of all, I think China is still a really fast growing economy. So in general, so when you're growing economy, you need more power, you need more energies, basically. And the second thing, from the supply perspective, actually in China, we have a massive coal power plant, right? So how can we deal with those, I would rather say it's kind of the advanced coal power plant. I think that's the key questions. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is the renewable energies in China. In China, I think it will have a growth potentials going forward, but still face a lot of, I would say, cost issues. Mm-hmm. So how are going to play the equation to make renewables more, I would say, competitive in terms of cost? Because otherwise, I think there's no easy way to solve this equation.
Not easy. So how do you see the 2060 target?
So going forward, actually, at BCG, we internally did a study right now, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at right now in China, we have a coal as our primary energy resources, roughly 60%. Going forward, you need to squeeze that below 20%, and then renewable, you need to probably take 50% of the overall energy consumption, energy productions. Mm-hmm. So I will imagine that going forward, a massive investment opportunity going forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so cutting traditional energy sources to 20%, that's a big reduction. So Yiyang, what steps will be taken in phasing out fossil fuels? What will happen to traditional energy sector?
Well, I think now China already have done a lot of work to promote the clean energy, and also the alternative of the traditional energy. So China have, after setting up this 2060 target, and also there's a 2030 target for the peak of the emission. So that one is a really tough target actually for China. Especially China is now still in an economic transition period. A lot of people, even they are just out of poverty, but they're still very poor. They need new houses, they need new car, they need a refrigerator and the cooling system. So this target actually to China is much harder than to European countries and Japanese and America. So in that case, from my observation, I have seen that the different Chinese ministry been mobilized to set up this roadmap for carbon neutral, and different sectors, different provinces, I mean the local government, or even large, companies, enterprises, especially the SOE, state-owned enterprises. They're all starting to set up, the plans, budget, and also roadmap to achieve these two targets. And I think the efforts, we can all see that. And China will be also a biggest market for clean energy in right now and in the future.
Indeed, as Rina just talked about, we're going to raise the renewable energy to about 50% by 2060. Very ambitious. And Steve, technology and innovation play a key role in decarbonization. So what technologies are being developed by Honeywell to improve energy efficiency and cut emissions?
It's interesting. When we look across Honeywell's portfolio, about half of what we do in research and development in some way is directed at improving environmental outcomes. And that's across all of Honeywell's very broad technology portfolio. So I'd start with my traditional area, which is aviation. We're working on green jet fuels, very chemically similar to fossil fuels, and can be made from a variety of sustainable feedstocks. And they can support reduction of greenhouse emissions by 65 to 85% compared to petroleum-based fuels. We're very excited about that, and we think that's going to be something key over the next few years. In addition to work on something called connected aircraft solutions, which enables more efficient flight. It means the aircraft can get from point A to point B with fewer miles, just burning less fuel. Second big area for us is something we call low global warming materials. It's a brand we have called Solstice, which are materials adopted for a wide range of things, including refrigeration, buildings, automotive air conditioning. And these are traditionally the emissions from these have been have contributed to global warming. Our technology is low global warming. We've already rolled it out across a number of areas, and one of the key areas we think going forward that's going to be automotive. We also do things in refineries, where we're working on solutions that meet refinery needs to boost clean fuel production capacity and just make for more efficient refineries that are less polluting. We think that's very exciting, and it's been rolled out in a number of places, including here in China. And finally, we actually work on building technologies. Our building technologies are used in 10 million buildings across the world. And the building technologies use data-driven operating systems to make the building just more efficient, so it uses less energy and contributes to reduction in global warming. So we think those are some key things across our portfolio. I said about half of what we do contributes to improving the environment.
Well, Steve, one more thing. How much does these technology cost? Will it increase the cost for consumers?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. We work very hard to keep the cost of the technology in line with what our customers, most of them it's business to business, in line of what they're willing to pay for the value of the technology. So no, in most places we haven't seen huge costs ultimately to the consumer, because we've worked very hard over many years what we call design to cost, and keep the costs in line with what consumers and what our business customers expect.
Thank you. And Rina, let's talk about the economic incentives. Sure. We know that the carbon trading market, initially covering the power generation industry in China, is up and running. So how much do you think this mechanism will reduce carbon emissions in China?
Okay, so I think it is a big topic. Actually, it is a really complex system, actually, globally speaking, because right now China actually started piloting this system almost a decade ago. But right now, this year, a few months ago, we opened up the nationwide, the carbon trading system called ETS, right? Yes. So right now, I think holistic perspective, I will say it is one of the most effective way really to push companies to really reduce their carbon emission, because you put the quota there. Once you don't reach the quota, then you need to trade the quota to buy it from someone else, right? So basically that gives the carbon certain price. When your carbon got a price, basically you change your financial, you change your balance sheet as well. So I think this is first of all, I think it's really effective method, I would say. But the second thing is,
does it work well?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So I think right now in China, I think we didn't really put too harsh on the company so far, because because right now we did a lot of work for our client to really help them to how to solve the carbon net zero strategy, right? So we did a study actually. If you look at current for this coal-firing plant, right? So if they don't reach the target, you know how much they got for their punishment? Just take a guess.
Much.
Just take a guess.
10 million?
No, it's just $500,000 RMB.
$500,000. Okay.
Yeah, so there's
still a long way to go.
Exactly. So I would say if you look at what's the current price in China right now, it's roughly less than 50 RMB per ton.
But will China increase the cost of carbon in the future by reducing the cap when things become more mature?
I think right now it's still kind of piloting, because right now it's still restricted into one sectors, right? Going forward, we'll be add more sectors. For example, chemical industry, for example.
Wind power.
It's basically like construction material, those heavy industries. So more players coming on board, and you give more strict on the quota.
Demand for quota.
Exactly. Then your price will go up. I think this is will really make the companies to think about where can I get those quota.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's a good start. But Dr. Shen, what's your view on this? What impact would China's carbon market have on the country's energy transition?
Well, definitely there will be great impact. Actually, China's carbon market is still improving. It's still not yet perfect. So it doesn't cover many sectors. For example, just talking about transport sector, the aviation sector, the maritime transport sector, we are still lacking, emission trading or emission reduction methodologies. So we still need to improve. But if we have this in the future, the new clean technology in those sectors will dramatically change the scope of the traditional, way of high carbon industries. So I think in the near future, China's this 2030 and 2060 target will empower every sectors to have a new methodology and new business model to even combine the carbon market with the other green finance market to generate very good result, and also even leading the world on emission reduction.
Well, talking about green policy, Steve, we know that China has also started working on a carbon tax scheme, while financial support is rapidly expanding, such as green bonds. So how do these policies affect foreign businesses in China?
I think it's interesting. I actually think these policies will continue to encourage investment, and it means where there are carbon neutral targets and we have these financial policies in place, high emitters will be pushed to adopt technologies like we just discussed and become low emitters. And for us, that comes in a number of places. So some examples here in China where we've seen these such adoptions is Universal Studios up in Beijing has adopted our low carbon emission refrigerants in their cold storage warehouses. And we think that's going to reduce their emissions by about 70% compared to traditional methodologies. And the next important step for that is going to be in automobiles. Zhejiang Petrochemical, or ZPC, uses a bunch of our technologies for refining and petrochemical complexes in Zhejiang, and it enables them to much more efficiently convert crude to petrochemicals. And in building technologies, we have building technologies across China, 90 airports, 1,000 hospitals. One great example we've seen, a company that's been on the leading edge here that's used some of our technologies in Carrefour, where their supermarkets have adopted our monitoring and measuring systems. And this has actually been going on since 2013, and has effectively reduced their power consumption, resulting in environmental improvements. So we think that those types of financing and trading mechanisms will just encourage investment and reductions in emission if they're done right.
Rina, as you mentioned, there are going to be big changes in China's energy mix. So what's the investment opportunity associated with these changes?
I think that's a really big question as well. I think, first of all, I think currently, if you look at capital markets, how much multiple they give to the renewable players, so you can have a sense. So broadly speaking, I think one thing definitely is the renewable companies. I'm not only talking about those renewable power generation companies. I'm talking about the whole value chain. For example, if you you produce silicon, so basically it's a key resources for all the PV panels, right? So I think just give an example.
I think China is a leader in this sector, right?
I think it is actually in the wind and the solar sectors. China, the whole value chain, supply chain, I think takes roughly 70% of all global capacity. So basically, I think one of the reasons that China is pushing so hard on the renewable, I think that's one of the reasons as well. And beyond the renewable, I think another thing is energy storage system, because that's a nature when you have more and more renewable coming on your grid. So basically, you need something to help them to store those energies. So basically, energy storage system will be another key areas. But beyond that, I think smart energy solutions, those companies and energy efficiency topics as well. And I think we even look at the far horizon. I think those new emerging technologies, I would say, for example, hydrogen, or maybe CCUS, or even synthetic oil. I think that will bring a better future, greener future to our society as well.
I think it's going to be a different growth model in the future, right? China's economic growth coming more from these green sectors, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And Dr. Shen, what's the potential for clean energy in China, in your opinion?
Well, I think the potential is huge. Right now, actually, China is already the largest, end user market for energy. Talking about energy use, especially for renewable energy. What is more, China is the largest, production power. I mean, talking about the production capacity, the world's largest, solar power, wind power, and so on. In addition, in the future, I think after close cooperation between China and the outside world, not just Europe and Japan, US, but also African countries and Southeast Asia, South Asia, I think China's cheaper and cost-effective clean energy will be also go to the whole world. So actually, after the Chinese mass production of solar panel, the price of solar panel already being cut down, and that enable a lot of African countries can use solar panel for their energy use. So this is already very, very good. But for China's domestic market, I think besides the so-called traditional renewable energy, I think hydrogen and other new kind of renewable energy or clean energy can play an even bigger role with the support of green finance in future.
Do you think it is now a good time for private investment in this sector?
It's depend on the market. You will see it now in the China's stock market, the clean energy stocks coming down a little bit. But from the long run, I think this whole sector will have bright future.
Okay, and Steve, how is carbon neutral target affect Honeywell's future strategy?
It's very important to our strategy, and it's really on two fronts. First is how we do business ourselves, so how we run our factories, how we run our operations. And that was very important to us just a few months ago when we made this commitment to be ourselves carbon neutral by 2035 in everything we do, whether it be factories or automobiles. And then the second thing is just how we work with our partners and our customers. So we have a number of the products and technologies that I've described, and we continue to invest about half of our research and development dollars in things that are going to help improve the environment, go towards carbon neutrality. And we think that's incredibly important. We've seen a big demand from it from our longstanding customers and partners in many other areas. And we do that globally, as well as here in China. We have very much a China for China strategy with many local scientists. We have about 2,000 engineers in China doing this type of thing every day. So carbon neutrality, it's great to see the goals that have been put out by China and other countries across the world, and it's going to be a very important part of our strategy going forward.
Mm-hmm. And Rina, what do you think about the opportunities for cooperation between China and the rest of the world? Because we know China is a leader in many industries like solar panels, and we know that China has vast consumer market.
That's true.
And there is also room for cooperation in technologies. I know you're in this area for a long time.
Yeah.
What do you think about this cooperation in technologies?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think we need to separate into the technology into different time horizon.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the currently commercial viable technology, I think China is really leading the world. I think in several different ways. I think fundamentally all the technology if you really want to do it kind of financially viable, have to put your cost down to that financial viable level. So I would say at that part, I think China is really leading the world. So I think going forward, probably a lot of collaboration, even for JV, for some of the equipment manufacturers to go abroad, really can bring the Chinese technology overseas. I think that's one part. And the second part, I think for kind of a more on the horizon type of, really far horizon type of technology, I think it's kind of the co-collaborate together, because I would to take a step back. I think for this, as a human being, really to combat with climate change, I think all the nations have to act together. Mm-hmm. There's not too much conflicts going forward, so we really need to work together. So for the kind of really advanced research, probably we need to really work together. For example, for kind of hydrogen, those technologies, CCUS technology, or maybe synthetic oil as well. Even beyond the energy sectors, I think a lot of things, for example, for maybe alternative protein, those things probably can really working as one nation rather than kind of silo with each other. I think that's really can help us to reach our target faster than we expected.
Oh, indeed. Well, Dr. Shen, what do you think about the impact of this carbon neutrality target on China's economy in the future?
We always talked before about this additionality of this renewable energy or carbon neutral related technology. But my view is that in the future, so the clean energy could be cheaper, and also the market potential will be bigger. So because we have already seen a lot of cases that renewable energy actually reduce the cost of the economic activities, and also especially in developing countries, which lack of technology, I mean the complicated technology like coal-fired power. Actually, the renewable energy like solar and wind can do better and cheaper to get the energy support for economic activities. So this has already been proved in many countries. In China, I think this will be for sure. Especially China have this consumer market and together the production capacity. So with these two important factors, I think a lot of nowadays very expensive renewable energy, including this hydrogen-related technology, in the near future, the cost will be coming down.
Mm-hmm. And Steve, last question for you. For you as a multinational company, how do you think about China's carbon neutrality target affect foreign trade and bilateral investment and other kind of global cooperation?
If anything, it's positive. I think it's a great stand towards something that's very important, here in China as well as globally to many of us as people in many countries. And we actually see in many ways it's going to improve trade because we all have technologies, different countries have technologies that we each need. So we think it's a great thing and it's a great stand, and Honeywell very happy to be here and to be a part of it.
Well, thank you so much for your insight. We have to leave it there. And that was Su Rina, Managing Director and Partner at Boston Consulting Group, and Stephen Lien, President of Honeywell China, and Shen Yiyang, Director of Inclusive Development Center for us. Well, CGTN will keep following the latest developments in tackling climate change. Please stay tuned for our next episode of Climate Talk at the same time on September 9th. I'm Guan in Beijing. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.